Hi guys, so today I'm going to be doing the much requested video for what I paid to give birth in South Africa without medical aid. I gave birth at Genesis Maternity Clinic, so I'm just going to give you an overview of what I spent. And I just want to say, if you are new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Yuri, and if you are a returning subscriber, thank you so much for the support on my channel. It means so much to me. So let's get into the video. Guys, so just a quick disclaimer, all the prices that I'm providing in this video is at the time that I was giving birth. That's in 2021, and obviously all prices are subject to change. So please guys, double check the prices with all of the places that I've mentioned, with your gynaes, with whatever practitioners you're seeing, just so that you have the right prices. This video is just a guideline, so you get a ballpark figure of what it might cost. It could be less, it could be more. Okay guys, so I just want to say that obviously if you don't have medical aid, government hospitals are an option. For me, I had an experience at a government hospital and I never wanted to go back after that, because I just felt like, you know, that's not something that I want to put myself through again. And I was very, very fortunate that my husband was able to work really hard so that he could pay for me to go to Genesis, and it was honestly the best decision we ever made. So guys, when I first found out that I was pregnant, I obviously took a normal home pregnancy test, and that was positive. I bought the clear blue pregnancy test, the one that's digital and shows you the weeks. After that, we decided to go for a blood test, and that just basically gives you a more clear and accurate indication of how many weeks pregnant you are. So that is what we chose to do. I did mine at Empath in Union Hospital, and that blood test cost me about 194 Rand. I then went for my 6 weeks scan, which was my first scan. I did that with a gynae that's at Clinton Hospital. He's actually a specialist and he helped me with my last miscarriage, so I wanted to go to him to make sure that everything was fine, because Genesis only takes in low risk pregnancies and they start seeing you once you are between 16 and 17 weeks pregnant. So I went to this gynae for my first couple of scans. Your first consultation is normally more than the follow-up scans that you have. My first consultation was 1,700 Rand together with the scan, and then thereafter all my scans were 850. While I was at this gynae, he also did the anomaly blood work. That's just where you get your blood drawn and they check for any anomalies with the baby to make sure that they don't have any of the genetic diseases or syndromes like Down syndrome and things like that. So that test was about 1,200 Rand. I also had that done via Empath, if I'm not mistaken. So thereafter, I had my last 15-week scan with my gynae at Clinton, and he said that everything was fine. My pregnancy was low risk, and there were going to be no unforeseen complications at that time. So when I started seeing him, I did tell him that my intentions were to go to Genesis. So he was fully aware of this. So he did tell me that at the time, everything was normal and I was low risk. Thereafter, I phoned Genesis and I asked them for an appointment. I had a lot of concerns like I addressed in my previous video, and they did see me at 16 weeks. I had an appointment with the midwife where we then discussed what the plan would be going forward for my antenatal appointments, as well as my birth and the cost. So during the first consultation that I went to at Genesis, my midwife discussed the payment breakdown. She gave me this document here, and this basically tells you what you need to pay, and she'll give you a date that it needs to be paid by. So Basically, this is for private patients that are non-medical aid. So you have two options. The first one is to have a upstairs room, and that's basically a single room. So your partner or spouse or whoever it is that's going to be with you while you are laboring and delivering can be there with you. But once you give birth, obviously they leave. They're not allowed to stay over because the room only caters for one person. And then the second option, that option is for a double room, which is downstairs, and that room is where your partner, your spouse, or whoever's going to be laboring and be present for your delivery can stay over with you. They normally charge you for 3 nights or to stay there for 3 days, so that's included in the price. Okay, so those two options, the first option, which is the upstairs room, is 28,300, and the downstairs room is 30,100. So in that fee is basically for the room, and it is for the midwife fee, as well as it does have a fee included for an epidural if you want to. The only fees that are not included in that price that I just gave you is obviously your gynae's fee if it's going to be a C-section, and then the anesthesiologist fee if you're going to have an epidural or spinal block. So those are the two things that you'd have to add in. I was told by my midwife that you can always just call the gynae that you are seeing and you ask them who do they use as an anesthesiologist. The gynae will obviously tell you her fee if she has to do a C-section. Also, what a lot of people don't realize is that the gynae that's doing your C-section needs an assistant to help her. So that assistant also needs to get paid. And then what my midwife said is normally whatever your gynae quotes you, you can just double that and have that put aside just in case you need an anesthesiologist. Obviously, if your gynae tells you who they use as an anesthesiologist, you can contact that person's office and get a quote from them. So at Genesis, we have two options. You can either go for in-house midwife antenatal visits, or you can get a private midwife. So I'm going to be talking about the in-house visits because I didn't get a private midwife. I used an in-house midwife. I think that they're absolutely amazing. I don't know what it's like to have a doula or anything like that because I didn't want one. But if you do have a private midwife or you are having a doula or a birth coach or something like that, those fees are going to be separate and you're going to have to contact them for those things. So the antenatal appointments at Genesis work like this. The first appointment was 400 Rand, and then my last appointment, well, not my last one, but the one at 37 weeks where you discuss your birth plan, that one is 400, and then the rest of them are 300 Rand. So leading up to your birth, so from 16 or 17 weeks, whichever you start with Genesis, you'll have an appointment every single month. And then once you hit 37 weeks, you normally have an appointment every week with your midwife. Because I've already done my blood tests with the other gynae that I was seeing, I didn't need to do that again. The only thing I needed to do was the anomaly scan and the anatomy scan. So Genesis has a lady. She's actually really nice, and she's very good at what she does. She is at Genesis. She does the scan for you. She's actually the one that told me that our baby is not a girl and it's actually a boy. That scan cost us 900 Rand. If you didn't do your blood test for the anomaly blood test, you'd have to do it via Genesis, and they use Lancet. So they'll give you like a form and you take it to Lancet, you get the blood work done, and then the blood work is sent to the gynae that works with Genesis. So when I moved over to Genesis, I could not use the same gynae that I was seeing here at Clinton because he does not work with Genesis. A lot of gynaes are not on their panel. They have a very short list. So basically the list that I was given is this long, and this is the gynaes that work with them. You can choose to either choose a gynae that is closest to you, so you can go to their offices, and then some of the gynaes on the list actually see you at Genesis. So you can also phone every single gynae on the list because each one of them have different prices, and a lot of them are cheaper than others. But the gynae that I chose, she was in Bedford View, which is actually very close to I am. I chose to see her there instead of going to Genesis because it's literally like around the corner from me. She's in Bedford View. So her fees were quite a big difference compared to the gynae that I was seeing here at Clinton. She charged me 2,800 Rand for every single consultation. Mind you, when you're at Genesis, you only have 2 visits with your gynae. So when you get there on your first appointment, they're also going to give you a page like this, and this is your schedule. So you see your gynae twice, like I said, between 28 and 30 weeks, you'll have 1 appointment. And then your last appointment with your gynae is going to be at 36 weeks. And that is the appointment where she's going to give you the go-ahead for vaginal birth. That was the case with me, okay? So you pay that twice. So basically, all in all, I paid 5,600 Rand for 2 gynae appointments. Now, when you go to the gynae, she does the scans for you. She checks your blood pressure, your urine, the normal stuff, okay? So it is quite expensive if you think about it, because she didn't give us any printouts of the scans. We had to take a USB drive where she loaded everything on there, which is fine. But obviously with my other gynae, he would print out the scans for me, and you know, that was a little bit more convenient, but it doesn't matter. She was very kind. She knew exactly what she's doing. She's very helpful as well. So the other thing that you have to cover is your pediatrician. So I don't know how it works at other hospitals. I know one of my friends gave birth and she didn't have a pediatrician straight away that came to see the baby. But at Genesis, there is a pediatrician there. And she normally comes and checks on your baby after you give birth, just to make sure that everything is okay. So our pediatrician, we had to pay a deposit of 2,650 Rand. So when your baby is born, she will come and check. Like I said, she checked our son. Everything was fine. He just had a little tongue tie, which she snipped, and everything was fine. I mean, he didn't even cry. I cried more than he did. Like, he didn't cry at all. But she just snipped his tongue and things like that. And then we also did get a refund of like 200 Rand for that. So if there's nothing that needs to be done for your baby, they will refund you an amount. And if there is something extra that needs to be done, they will add it to an account. Okay. So then the other fee that we have to take into consideration is the COVID tests. So before we were admitted at Genesis, my husband and I, because we were being admitted together, we had to get a COVID test done. And you normally do this when you're very close to giving birth. So our midwife was on point when she said that I was going to give birth. So a few days before I went into labor, we went and we got COVID tests done. So the COVID tests for both of us were quite expensive, if you ask me. They worked out to 850 Rand each. The most expensive things are obviously like your deposit that you need, obviously the lump sum for, because at 37 weeks, when you go in to discuss your birth plan, you are required to pay that deposit of either the 28,300 or the 30,100. So that is the biggest portion. But if you are giving birth and you don't have medical aid for yourself, you are required to then get medical aid for your baby, just in case there are any complications and your child needs to go to the NICU. Then the medical aid will cover your baby. So they won't necessarily do anything for you, but it will help, because if you don't have medical aid, the deposit that you have to pay at a hospital is something crazy, about 200,000 if I'm not mistaken. Okay, so when I gave birth, I stayed at the hospital for 2 nights. And that was just because of my blood loss. I had to have a blood transfusion. The blood transfusion, obviously, I have worked into my total cost, but if you don't require it, you don't have to worry about it. My blood transfusion was about 5,700 Rand. And then because I didn't stay the extra day, plus I didn't have an epidural or any pain medication, they refunded me a total of 8,500 Rand. So I ended up only paying 21,600 Rand to give birth at Genesis, and that included the midwife fees, the drips, everything that I got there, the meals, everything. So that actually isn't really bad, because when I got a quote from the private hospitals to do it, I was looking at around 40,000 Rand. So then also during my pregnancy, I had to check my iron levels twice, and the iron tests are about 40 Rand at Lancet. So that wasn't too bad. And like I said, they send your results to your gynae, and then your midwife gets access to it. So all in all, throughout my pregnancy, taking in consideration the specialist that I saw first and then my experience at Genesis, my total that I paid for my birth was around 40,600 Rand. Okay guys, so I didn't want to make this video very long, so I basically just gave you a very quick overview of everything. If there's any questions that you have about certain fees or amounts, then please let me know. I was also thinking about creating a blog to maybe post more in depth about the fees and things like that. So if you are interested in something like that, please let me know in the comments. But if this video was helpful, please give it a like, share it with friends, and please remember to subscribe. I will really appreciate it. So thank you for watching, guys. Take care.